now, right now. Right 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 now, right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. So we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the drop that has commenced on Bitcoin. If you've been watching the chart on Bitcoin over the last couple of days, you will know that Bitcoin has been forming a three black crows formation, pointing it further to the downside. And there are quite a few technical indicators that are signaling that there may be some worrying bearishness coming to Bitcoin relatively soon. We've been hoping that Bitcoin would build out a bull flag and that Bitcoin would be able to follow that bull flag all the way up to about $28,500 to $29,000. Not so sure that's going to happen right now. We're going to discuss exactly why in today's episode of Coffee and Crypto Live. I really appreciate all of you for tuning in today. Let's go ahead and jump on to reading some names. We got Crypto Mini Bike in chat, RC Moore, Joe Bollier, Jerry Boss Guru, Edsel Cornelio is in chat, Philly Skills in chat, Drew, Jason Berry, Mickey's in chat, Buggin' King is in chat, Schmedley's in chat, Lazarus Hands, Coin Chick, and Sir Stonewall are all in chat. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and jump straight on over to CoinMarketCap and get started. Bitcoin right now is trading at 27 grand. Yeah, that's down a good bit from where we have seen Bitcoin trading at not too long ago. And if we look at the chart here on the daily chart, you can see that we are currently forming, we'll look at Lux Algo here in a minute. We're currently forming a three black crows formation. We're going to come back to the chart here in a second, but as you can see, Bitcoin has been in somewhat of a droop, and we'd like to talk about whether this is the beginning of something larger or not. Over on CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin is down 1.5% over the last 24 hours. Ethereum is down 0.4% over the last 24 hours. And they're both down over the last week. Now, by the way, I'm not going to talk about it too much today, but I did just want to mention this right here. Is a nice headline to just kind of remind you. Carolyn Ellison begins star witness testimony in SBF trial. I'll just go ahead and bring that up for just a second. Glasses wearing Ellison took a decent amount of time to identify the defendant in the courtroom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you guys want, you can pause this and read this. The reason I haven't been talking as much about this case is because Tom Wilkes actually asked this in the Discord server. Is the Sam Bankman-Fried case going to have any real bearing on the price? I think probably not, unless some kind of massive precedent comes out of it. The main thing that I see happening from the Sam Bankman-Fried trial is there potentially being some sentiment change. If he walks free, that may lead to a certain sentiment change in one direction. If he ends up going to prison, that could lead to a sentiment change in another direction. If he does go behind bars, that could lead to an emboldened SEC. If he walks free, that could lead to a very ticked off cryptocurrency community. So there's different cultural matters there. I'm not sure that any of them are going to directly impact the price, though, which is one of the reasons that I haven't spoken on it that much. I prefer to talk on things that are actually going to impact the price. One of those I will talk about here in just a little while. Pew Pew Poom 2 saying, lol, did you guys delete my comment? I didn't delete any comments. It's been a long time since I've deleted a comment unless it was just plain vulgar. So I didn't do that. Sometimes YouTube will. So keep that in mind. Crypto Mini Bike said, hit the likes for Jeb, everyone. Thank you guys so much. And thank you for your patience, guys. I've been extremely sick. I'm not going to get into it, but I've got like 3 different things going on all at once right now. And it's just very difficult to deal with, to be quite honest. And so apologies for not being here yesterday. Like I said, a bunch of different health stuff going on all at the same time, and it's kind of hard to manage one in light of the other. But anyway, we're here, and I'm excited to be here. So let's go ahead and keep talking. I'm going to go ahead and jump straight on over to CoinMarketCap, over to TradingView, and we're going to do some technical analysis. Now, you may be thinking, Jeb, you finally have a clean chart for us to work with. No, you don't know how it works here. Every one of these lines is important. I'm just kidding. We're going to go to another chart like this one that's a little cleaner. Over the last, let's say, month, Bitcoin's been in a gradual uptrend, and there's a couple of trend lines that have been important for Bitcoin And a couple of them are these uptrending levels of support and resistance right here. These roughly denoted the uptrending trading channel that Bitcoin has been maneuvering through, and we have broken bearish out of it. This is the concerning fact that we're discussing today when I say in the title that Bitcoin crashes in motion now. I like to explain the title somewhat because some people think, Jeb, you're doing clickbait. Look, this is marketing. Of course I'm going to try and get you in the door, but I'm not going to lie to you. There's a crash in motion right now, and this very well may be the beginning of something larger. This is not only Bitcoin breaking below this uptrending level of support, though, that has defined this uptrend. It is also Bitcoin breaking below this more or less flat level of support that Bitcoin has been using. I'll actually just go ahead and draw it flat. This flat level of support that Bitcoin had been using as a ceiling in prior, as a floor in more recent memory. Bitcoin did manage to break all the way through to the upside here, but it started coming back to the downside here. We were hoping that this bull flag would play out and that Bitcoin would be able to go through an uptrending movement there, but that has not occurred. Instead, Bitcoin has dropped to the downside. There's a few different reasons that I think may be in motion here, and we can just talk about a few of those. Just want to give you a quick update on the Dixie and the SPY, just kind of give you some information, then we'll piece it all together. The Dixie is going through a correction, so that is bullish. It's good to see. It's kind of surprising Bitcoin's going through a drop as Dixie has been, but just keep that in mind. And the stock market's rallying, so conditions are actually pretty ripe for Bitcoin to go through an uptrend. Now, why is Bitcoin going through a correction? I cannot tell you for sure the impact of a certain series of events that you guys have asked for me to discuss quite a lot on Bitcoin just yet, but I do wonder if the conflict in Israel has something to do with the drop on Bitcoin. This is the first time I'm going to speak on this. I wanted to get at least a basic understanding of what's going on before I began talking about this. You guys know that I am no stranger to speaking on the war in Ukraine. I think it's one of the most important geopolitical events in the modern world, and I also believe that this conflict between Israel and Hamas has similarly become one of the most important conflicts in the modern world. I want to preface with saying that I'm praying for everyone in Israel, Palestine, etc. There's a lot of people getting hurt. There's a lot of evil going on, and it is an atrocity what's happening. I stand for peace. I want peace in the region, so we'll just kind of put that moral 2 cents out there. I'm sure most of you guys, hopefully all of you guys, will agree with that sentiment. Now, speaking on it from a geopolitical standpoint, Israel is one of the most important regions in the entire world, spiritually, politically, economically, technologically. It's very easy to overlook that little stretch of land on the West Bank and say that it is not important, but the entire nation of Israel, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Palestine are some of the most important territories in the entire world. As a Christian, or as a Muslim, or as a Jew, of any of those three faiths, but more or less your entire faith revolves around the city of Jerusalem and specifically the Temple Mount. It's an incredibly important place for 3 or 4 billion believers of those three different religions. And as far as plenty of different reasons, it's very important. Now, why is it important to Bitcoin? Because this is not me talking about events, and this is not the point of me talking about this is not to discuss Israeli history or to discuss, prophecy or any of that. The purpose of me bringing this up is how it impacts on Bitcoin and on markets. I believe that the conflict between Israel and Hamas is going to shake things up on the global chessboard substantially. And so to paint that picture, I need to back up a little bit, and I'm going to tie this into Bitcoin because I actually think the story that I'm about to tell you is the reason that Bitcoin has been going through a drop. And I'll explain why. First and foremost, just think about it. The Dixie's moving to the downside. The stock market is moving up. That is a prime condition for Bitcoin to be going through a rally. I really ought to sit down for 10 hours one day and do some back testing and build out a statistical model to show you guys how powerful the correlation is. But essentially, if Dixie's going down, stock market's going up, Bitcoin's got like a 70 or 80% chance of moving up. If stock market's down, Dixie's up, Bitcoin's got like a 70 or 80% chance of moving down. So why is Bitcoin moving down when it should be moving up? When it's got a recent buy signal, when everything seems to be good for it? Why is it dropping? I think it has to do with this war. Let me paint you a picture. Russia and Iran have not been allies in 2,500 years. It has been millennia since those two regions have gotten along. Persia and Moscow. Those two regions have been at war. They've been in conflict for much of human history. When Russia launched the war in Ukraine, and we've talked about the war in Ukraine many times. When Russia launched the war in Ukraine, Russia is trying to establish its borders because it realizes demographically it is facing oblivion. Russia wants to establish its borders by invading Ukraine and then going for Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, Romania, Moldova, and Belarus is already has a dictator, Lukashenko, who's already a friend of Putin. So they've already got Belarus. So if they can get all of those nations, all of them being member states of NATO, then Russia can reestablish its borders and put a couple 100,000 troops in each one of the choke points and defend itself from a land invasion from NATO and secure itself some kind of future where it can die a peaceful death. That's what Russia was trying to do with Ukraine. Russia found an unlikely ally in one of the other three pariah states globally in Iran. There are three pariah states that are essentially cut off from global politics, and that would be North Korea, Iran, and Russia. Every other nation on planet Earth has some kind of ties to the rest of the West. Those three nations essentially don't. Before the war in Ukraine, it was just Iran and North Korea, more or less. All three of those states might as well be nuclear. Iran has come out and said that they're working on nuclear bombs and that they want to basically wipe Israel off the face of the planet. So we're going to tie all this back into Israel, and we're going to tie it all back into Bitcoin. Many people say, Jeb, why are you always talking about politics? Why are you always talking about geopolitics? Because I think it's one of the biggest impactors on the price of Bitcoin. And I also think it's one of the biggest impactors on your life as a denizen of the human population. So I think it's important, put it that way. Jeb is always sick. I know. Yeah, it's discouraging sometimes. Anyway, Russia launching a war on Ukraine cut them off from the rest of the world. And so they had to find an ally somewhere, and they ended up finding an ally in Iran. Iran started building drones that they would sell to the Russians, and the Russians used them in Ukraine. And so they've started to form a kind of alliance over the last year, and they are essentially allies now. The interesting thing, though, is that Hamas is funded by the Iranian government because Iran has this idea of spreading its reach globally. They've come out and straightly said that a world without Israel or America is possible, and they're working towards that. Like, I mean, that's it, if you're a student of history at all, it's very clear. They're very clear on their objectives, is to spread their ideology and to wipe Western influence off the face of the map, as well as Iran, as well as Israel. And again, none of that is a political side. That's just me restating what they've said. So let's just be clear here. I'm not taking a political side on this. I am restating what their leadership has come out and said over the course of the last 50, 60 years. Iran very likely gave billions of dollars to Hamas to launch the attack that is now ongoing in Israel. And Israel launched a formal declaration of war against Hamas, and a land invasion is likely to begin soon. A couple of things to note here. Israel has one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence networks on the face of the planet. They know if a pin drops in South Africa, and somehow the Israeli government did not know that this attack was coming. I smell BS, to be totally honest with you, that they didn't know this was happening. It could be because of the political turmoil that was going on between Netanyahu and some of his counterparts. There's been a lot of protests going on in Israel. I haven't talked about it on the channel. I have been keeping up with it to a certain degree. It could be because there was a lot of political turmoil going on, and so the counterintelligence just fell by the wayside. Whatever. If you even so much got close to the border of Israel up until about a year ago, you were found out. One person. They had this tightest border control on the planet. And somehow, a massive a massive incursion was able to be staged and was not stopped in time before hundreds of people were kidnapped. And so it's a terrible thing what's going on in Israel right now. And so I want to be able to explain to you guys what I think is going to play out from here. First and foremost, this is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. Iran is hell-bent on wiping Israel off the face of the map. Again, their words, I'm paraphrasing, but their sentiment, not mine. I'm not putting words in their mouth, put it that way. They've been developing a nuclear weapons program for a very long time with the stated intent of destroying Israel. So, with Iran backing Hamas and the Gaza Strip is a very small territory, but that's a lot of funding. Iran is, pariah state, but they've got a lot of money. And so this is a war that is not going to be over in a couple of days. This is going to be a bigger event than many of you guys were thinking. Not many of you guys were thinking, but then we might be quick to believe. This is going to be a drawn-out conflict, and it will probably lead to the complete annihilation of the Gaza Strip and the reincorporation of that territory into the Israeli sphere. But when that occurs, that's going to lead to quite a lot of political upheaval, because many of the people in the Gaza Strip don't want to be in Israel. They want to be under Hamas, or they want to be under at least a Muslim-led government. And so you're looking at even more instability in the Middle East, which is exactly the last thing that anybody ever wanted to say about the Middle East. How does this impact the United States? How does this impact the markets? Well, it impacts it in so many various ways that I don't have time to get into all of it today. But I will continue to talk about it over the course of the coming months, because it is exceptionally important for you in your personal life, as well as for you in your investment portfolio in Bitcoin. And I like to talk about things that are relevant to your life, not just to cryptocurrency, but of course that is the first stage. How does this impact the rest of the world? Well, the West has, led by President Barack Obama. Wow, I'm really living in the past. Led by President Biden, has come out very, very, very clearly in support of Israel. Biden has gotten up on stage and said the first clear thing he said in many years, and he said, "I state very clearly that we are in full support of Israel." Right? It made it very crystal clear. It's like there's no misinterpreting that. We stand as a country firmly with Israel. And so billions of dollars in military aid are already on their way over there. That is going to lead to a lot of political conversations back home, because many people are already wondering whether the United States should be sending military aid to Ukraine in the first place. And now there's going to be a lot of military aid going to Israel. I personally think that if you value world peace, both of those are good things to send aid to. Because if you want more, I won't use the T word on YouTube because we will definitely get demonetized. I'm really wondering whether we're going to get demonetized from talking about this, but we'll see. If you want more T in the world, and if you want more of Mother Russia launching World War III by invading Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Romania, Moldova, and Poland, if you want more of that, then yeah, sure, let Ukraine fall. Yeah, sure, let Israel fall. If you want world peace, then maybe support the people that are working for world peace. So I'm not actually against sending aid over there. That's one of the only political statements I'll make on the channel. I think it actually makes quite a bit of sense for the United States to do that. I think it's a worthy investment of capital, especially considering human lives are at stake. What I will say, though, is that not everybody feels that way. And there are plenty of people in the United States that would vehemently disagree with me and say, Jeb, get out of world politics. And I agree with that to a certain degree. And the United States is moving in that direction. We're not patrolling world oceans the way that we used to. We are not deploying troops into far-off bases the way that we used to. We are letting certain regional conflicts play themselves out without meddling in them in ways that we didn't used to. And I think that can be a good thing as well. But it is going to lead to some political disagreement and disunity here in the United States, and that is also going to lead to a lot of shakeup around the election. Lazarus Hand said the T word. Let me just say this. It's a terrible word. There you go. I am pretty sure that if I say that word, I will get demonetized. So, how does this impact Bitcoin? Again, I will talk about this more, and I will keep you roughly updated on what's going on. Right now, there have been hundreds of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip led by the Israelis, and they have essentially pummeled much of the command and control infrastructure into the ground in Gaza, and President Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered a full-on siege by land, air, and sea of the Gaza Strip. If you don't know the Gaza Strip, let me get a map here because I know some of you guys might not be familiar with this. The Gaza Strip, yeah, is bordered pretty much completely. It's this little strip of land right here is bordered pretty much completely by Israel. Israel is this nation right here. You've got the West Bank over here. This is the other part of Palestine. And you've got Gaza right here. This is where Hamas is. Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered a full-on blockade of this entire strip of land by air, land, and sea, which means that 90% of the border here is going to be completely shut down for business. And the only area that they're going to be able to get anything in is through this little tiny narrow strip of land here bordering with Egypt. I don't know if you can see that, but there's not a lot of road connections. This road right here that is on the border is a tiny little 2-lane highway. There's not much infrastructure between these two areas. There is a lot more border here between Gaza and Israel. There's not much here. It's a very, frankly, small piece of land. And so there's already no power in the entire area. There's already dwindling food and water resources. And this siege is going to get pretty bad. It's going to quickly turn into a humanitarian crisis, which is unfortunate because the humanitarian crisis is happening right under the gauze of a T-word organization. So good luck getting much support in there, especially when it's fully blockaded by the Israelis. So again, this is going to cause deep and wide political divides because you're going to have factions that are saying we must stand with Israel because Israel must defend itself and Israel must eliminate a T organization on its very doorstep that are kidnapping its children. But at the same time, you're going to have other people making a very fine argument, which is there are children that are starving in Gaza. What do? I don't know. That's why I'm not in politics. I don't want to be the one trying to deal with that issue. Because I couldn't tell you right now how you go about fixing that problem. Really, there is no way to fix the problem without there being peace. So, this is a mess. And I want to be very clear. I do not know how Benjamin Netanyahu should handle this, nor am I saying how he should handle this. Obviously, there has to be a response. Obviously, the least number of people being hurt either by weapon or starvation as possible is absolutely essential. And time's going to tell what's going to happen. I couldn't tell you how it's all going to play out. I couldn't tell you what should be done, but I will do my best to report on what's going on. And if there's something I think's obvious, then I will state it as obvious. How does this apply to Bitcoin? Well, this conflict began about 4 days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, early on Saturday. It's right around here. Let's just call it here. Right around here is where the war began. And you can see that Bitcoin has not been performing very well ever since then. And so it's difficult to ascertain the exact impact of this conflict on the Bitcoin market, but I believe that it's obvious that there has been some impact on the Bitcoin market. We saw a pretty large impact on Bitcoin on February 20th last year when the war against Ukraine began. It was right here. Bitcoin went through a bit of a rally, but it ended up going through a major crash short thereafter. Ever since the war in Israel began, we saw two spinning tops indicating indecision. The market was trying to decide, how are we going to respond to this? And in the last 3 days, we have seen that it has responded negatively. We're going to need to pay close attention to this conflict. It is in the headlines right now. It is new news. Unfortunately, in a way, the Russian-Ukrainian war is old news at this point, and people are not really paying attention to it, even though they should be. It's still one of the most important events happening in our world right now. But everyone's paying attention to Israel and Hamas, and many people are understandably concerned about the state of the global economy. And oftentimes when you see a war such as this one begin, you see cashing out of risk-on assets. And so Bitcoin has gone through a correction as a result of that. And that correction is a correction that may continue for some time as the war bears on. Now, let's read chat here for a second. Many of you guys have very, very important and real comments in chat about what's going on there. Some of you guys are using the G word, another word I can't say on YouTube. I certainly hope that doesn't take place. That would be horrible. People are talking about, the food and water being blockaded and, people starving in Gaza. I have a feeling that that's not going to continue to the point where you're just going to have hundreds of thousands of people starving to death. Hopefully nobody ends up starving to death. I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu wants the pushback of that word. And I don't think he would go that far, but he might. We will see. Morally, I'd like to think that he wouldn't. Politically, it probably wouldn't be in his best interest because you would start to get a whole lot less support from the United States, and Tel Aviv needs the support of the United States right now. I haven't even touched on how Saudi Arabia has been getting to the point of recognizing Israeli sovereignty and how Iran doesn't like that. There's a lot of different, and how Morocco just a few years ago recognized Israeli independence, Israeli statehood. Haven't gotten to a lot of that today. I will talk about more of that in the future. Since this has become a war and an impactor on markets, it is now relevant to the Bitcoin price. And so it is within the scope of the conversation here on this channel. So I will continue to talk about it. I'm going to pause on it for today, though. I want to read chat and we'll talk about that. But then we're going to kind of look at a few things and we're going to wrap it out here. Let's see. We have hundreds of thousands of people that are sick, homeless, and poor in the United States. Let's keep printing money for other countries, though. For real. Yeah, see, that's the problem, is that I don't envy government, because while we can sit here and make fun of government all day long, ultimately, as a Christian, I know that government does not have the ability to solve all of the problems in the world. And I think putting government in those shoes is the real mistake. When we put government in a place to solve all of our problems, then we will guaranteed be let down. And we should see that in our world, because we've put the government in many ways in position to solve all of our problems. And that is not the government's job. So when the government fails at it and we get mad at the government, really we should be looking at ourselves and our expectations. I don't expect the government to solve homelessness. I expect the government not to implement policy that causes homelessness. I don't expect the government to solve sickness. I expect the government to not implement policy that causes sickness. I don't expect the government to solve poverty. I expect the government to not implement policy that is going to cause poverty. And if there's anything that the government can and should do for those things, then sure, I'm not against something like a CDC if it were run in a non-corrupt fashion. I am not against something like, to some degree, some kind of assistance to help people get back on their feet. I'm not against those things. I'm not against the government being helpful in a way. But what I do want us to understand is that it is our job to help those people. It is our job as capitalists to go and invent new medicines. It is our job as capitalists to go and create new jobs. It is our jobs as people that love others to help those that are less fortunate. It is our job to pray for them. It is our job. It is the church's job, first and foremost, to be out there helping people. And we need to take a close look in the mirror and stop blaming the government for our problems. And we need to take a close look in the mirror and realize that it is because the men and women need to stand up and do their job. And I'm looking first at myself. I've got an iPad over here that's reflective. I'm looking at you, Jeb. You need to do that, right? That's what we need to do. We need to stand up and do that. I'm not saying the government doesn't have a role to play in that. They absolutely do. But we need to first get the log out of our own eye. What are we doing? It's a little bit like what John F. Kennedy said. I'm not, in many ways, the biggest fan of Kennedy. There's a lot of things he did right, absolutely, with civil rights and everything. But one of the things that Kennedy did say with the whole ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country thing. It's exactly my point. The government should be ideally would be in a supporting role, supporting us to help others. The citizenry. We are the people. The government is not the people. And we've gotten lazy enough and forgotten that. All right. With that said, music tags, I totally understand your sentiment, which is interest being in faraway shores rather than being at home. The tricky thing is this. Let's say that Canada decided that they were going to go full-on stupid and attack America, and we had a land invasion from the north. Justin Trudeau's riding in on a pony, saying, we're going to conquer D.C. We're going to do this, guys. We're going to get you. We're going to, boom, socialism. Let's do it. Let's say that happened. The men and women of our country, to whatever capacity necessary, would need to stand up to defend against that. And you might say, well, wait a minute, my house is not in order. Look, it's a mess here. We might not have quite enough money. We need to do this. We need to do, my house. I can't go and help defend. I can't. But here's the deal. If you don't stand up and defend your homeland, you're not going to have a homeland to defend. And so there is a certain degree of saying, look, if the United States being as powerful as it is, there is a certain degree of it's in our best interest to make sure that global affairs go the way we want them so that we continue having a global affair to worry about in the first place. He would ride a moose. That's right. There you go. Yep. Okay. So, again, Bitcoin is correcting even as we speak, and that correction, as we speak, is probably going to continue. I'll show you a few more pieces of technical analysis, then we're going to wrap it out here. Bitcoin does have a bearish MACD cross coming into play to confirm this movement to the downside. I believe this is going to go lower before it picks back up. We've also got a bearish movement below the 14 interval moving average here on the daily chart for Bitcoin. We've got Lux Algo here, which is still green, but the trend catcher sitting at 26,875. That trend catcher is something that Bitcoin's going to want to hold above if it wants to maintain this buy signal. So we're going to see where Bitcoin holds here. It's going to have to fight hard to hold, though. I believe it can, but it's going to have to fight hard. A couple of other moving averages to take note of. You've got many of the moving averages sitting right here at the very level that we're looking at. Inputs, you got the 200. It's right there. We're right on top of the 200 moving average. Just keep that in mind. If we fall below 27,000, you're going to see a significant drop. It's hard to tell where exactly it dropped to, so I'm not going to give you a trade setup or even an idea of that, but you can be on the lookout for that on your own. You might find something that I haven't found. I would be careful about trading this movement right now, just because we've already seen so much of it play out. We're below the 20 daily interval moving average, so the drop is probably going to continue a good bit from here. We'll continue to talk about this drop over the course of the next couple of days. What happens if the U.S. goes broke? Well, you will have to get out a history book for that, because the U.S. has been broke for longer than any of us have been alive. So apparently nothing. Apparently nothing. Don't ask me how that works. It's a crap fest. Von Cottonwald said, well, I'm unsubscribing now. Jeb is a hypocrite, claiming faith in God, then endorsing sending dollars and weapons to uncivilized countries. Very disappointing. So here's the thing, guys. I'm not again. I believe that peace is what is needed. Is what is needed. And I believe that in that conflict, there's a side that is on the defense, and there's a side that is on the offense. I'm not in favor of sending any kind of aid to somebody that's trying to make things worse. Let me be clear on that. Good message, Jeb. Thank you. Definitely got some polarization here on this one. So based on just this one event war, how low can we expect Bitcoin to go? It's going to be hard to tell, because it's a very different war than the Russian-Ukrainian war. It's on a kind of a smaller scale, but not really. It's going to take some time to see how things play out. I couldn't tell you, but I don't think Bitcoin's going to go below 25K. Oh, I don't condone any atrocities. Sin is sin on anybody's side, Israel or Palestine's. I want to be very clear on that. I don't have a side in this. What I was telling you is that Biden said that the United States has a side. I have a side of peace. That's the side that I'm on. I don't condone any atrocities, and I think there's been a lot of them on both sides. I don't think that blockading food and water from civilians is a good idea, by the way, in case I didn't make that clear. Appreciate the comments so that you give me the opportunity to clear those things up, because I'm definitely not for... I'm against violence. That's the point. I don't like any of this. I'm praying for peace, and I'm praying for people to stop getting hurt, and for people that have been taken hostage on either side to be returned to their families, because I think it's happened a little bit on both sides. I don't think there's one good and one bad. I think there's just bad. So it's hard to say what to do here. Like I said, I don't want to get mixed up too much in the politics of it, but I will tell you, I am on the side of peace, and whichever side is working for peace, then good for them. At the end of the day, what's happening is very sad, and I'm not happy to report on any of it. All right, guys. If you enjoyed today's stream, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That is going to wrap it out. Before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.